to the report you just looked at.
Yep.
But if you get to the second page, that's where the real important information is. Because then what we do is you see the lines broken out by our year end. And then the next section, you'll see school choice charges. So you'll see, as you know, we were charging a significant amount of our instructional staff to the school choice line, which we've been talking about. You could see how much we charged to school choice and what the surplus was in school choice. And then at the bottom are the net school, non-net school spending costs. So at the end of the report, the really important number is, yes, we did meet net school spending, but not by much, by probably about 2%, just over 160,000, but we did meet net school spending. Any questions on those two reports? I thought you...
Currently.
Okay. I thought you might also be interested in the next two handouts, which is just our status at year end for stabilization, is the first one. So again, we did not have a submission to stabilization that was not on the budget for FY19, which is why you don't see anything going in there. But what you do see is a change in the interest earned. So that is the balance of stabilization. We're still within that ballpark of what we've worked towards, which was the 8 to 10% of our overall budget. So we're in a good place with stabilization, and we'll probably just keep moving forward with the method that we've been using. The next page is the year-end statement on our OPEB account. OPEB, we actually are going to be spending a lot more time talking about this year during our budgeting process, because we know that this is something we have to get a real strong system in place for. We had a wonderful OPEB trust meeting just I think last week, and Paul was there. We are working on actually a funding policy that the OPEB trust committee will actually recommend an annual funding policy that will go before our school committee to be endorsed, where we'll say that, you know, we're going to do everything that we can to have a set amount that we're going to put towards OPEB moving forward. I thought it would be important because fiscal 19, we also had the warrant article on the roof project to give you an update on that project. We had a really fun summer, and I mean that. It was, in terms of projects and MSBA projects, it went really well. We had a wonderful OPM that we worked with, Left Field. They were fantastic. They gave us daily reports, and I gave you a sample of a daily report that we received, so we knew exactly what was happening and where, and had wonderful tracking of every single day of the project. So I have one of these for every day from the day school got out, and I'm still getting them as we close out the project. The next set of handouts that I gave you are photos from many of those reports that we received each day. But you can see sort of the progression of the project, which I thought would be interesting for you. So the first photo is from June 21st, right after school got out. It was like all of the materials for the entire project were delivered the day school got out. Every parking lot was full. So this summer, if you drove by Neshoba Tech, you probably saw a lot of things around the building. We made a lot of people nervous that it wouldn't get done on time, but true to their word, they did finish on time. So you see the progression going through. The dates are up on the top left. The second picture, after they removed the solar panels from the roof, you could see the condition of the roof. It was definitely time. Then you see when they start taking it down to the decking, you know, moving into June, there were 3 major sections of the roof. They actually did one section at a time, starting with a section in the back and then actually finishing the front of the building at the very end of the project. So as you move through the pictures, you get to see the new decking, the new roof, and just get a real flavor for what the project looked like. I did get to spend some time up on the roof this summer. It was a fun summer. We had a good time. But again, project went very well. Project was coming in within budget, on time. Couldn't ask for a better project overall. So if you just keep going through to the pictures, you know we did have some HVAC work that was built in. You see some of the HVAC. And if you just flip through to the last picture, I had to include this one on August 23rd because that's when the emails started coming in. Are you sure everything's going to be out of the parking lot? Are you sure you can open? That is the crane, or the lull, I believe it's called, if we're going to use the correct terminology. That's the lull that spent every day right outside my office bringing materials up and down all summer long. True to their word, they got every last piece out and actually swept the parking lot before we opened school in August. So again, went really well. In terms of the financing of the project, we actually ended up going with one-year bands.
Okay.
And we feel that this is actually going to be very beneficial for a couple of reasons. One, we'll be able to control the payments annually to the towns, so that, true to our word, we can stay within the budgeted amount of the old project coming off, the new project coming on, and keeping those the debt each year level to our towns. And then also in 2025, our larger debt that we've been carrying will be paid off, and then we'll also have the opportunity to potentially put more money towards it to be able to pay off this particular these bands quicker, so that we didn't want to be paying for the roof long after its useful life was over, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's going on with the roof project. The next page, I think I had mentioned to you last time we met that during the 2018-2019 school year, we had actually gone out for a couple of different assessments. We had a full facility assessment on the current conditions of our building and grounds. And then we had also, through a partnership with Westford, used a company called Guidepost to conduct a safety assessment of our building. So these two reports were finalized and published. What you see before you here is just the summary page, essentially, of the full facility assessment and their recommendations for what's high priority, what's medium priority, and long-term needs, which we'll be using to drive our capital planning and our capital programming moving forward. So again, the items in red are the items that I think we really need to be looking at in terms of the future. The first one, where it says upgrade security at the main entrance, and it says hi, I have more good news. We applied for a competitive state grant, the Safer Schools and Communities State Equipment Grant, and we received $80,000 this summer.
Great.
Towards potentially what we're talking about right there on that report. So very excited to have received that grant. We'll be implementing it between now and December.
What are you going to do to upgrade the security?
To be quite frank, we don't talk about it in public. It actually is something.
Updating the systems, or are you changing the whole way you're doing
No,
it?
it's
just
not.
that
It's not.
Your procedures are wonderful.
Why, thank you, thank
Yeah.
you. The $80,000 that we received for the grant will go towards our two major recommendations in the safety report.
Okay.
But the safety report, we actually have the opportunity that report only has to be talked about in executive session.
Okay.
Whenever you're talking about safety and security, just so that the public
No,
don't
yeah,
necessarily know.
I'm not specifics. Just
Is
curious
it
if you're
going to change the front
overhaul whole
entrance, like the
system.
visit, what it looks like? No,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
The other items that are in red, I know I had mentioned to you last year as well, issues with the fire suppression system. Good news and bad news. Last year, when I came before you in the spring, we weren't sure if we were going to need a full replacement. It does look like we may be able to do replacement in sections, and it will be more affordable to do that. The challenge that we'll have is timing of that. It takes a long time to make these changes, and whether or not we could do them over the summer months and not relocate classes is something we'll have to work on. And then at the bottom of the report, you see sort of the long-term picture of the facility needs that we have. Again, looking at the items in medium, the good news is that even though it's a large number, sometime within the next 3 to 8 years, we also have that large amount of debt that's coming off in 2025. So again, maybe we'll be trying to plan the timing of a capital campaign after that debt comes off, if that makes sense. So I know I've just given you a lot of information very quickly, but I don't want to take too much of your time. I'd be glad to answer any questions you have. Bigger picture, great year, great start to a new year. Thank you for your support, and thank you for your support with the MSBA project as well.
Of course. Well, thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate it, and I think this is something we're going to try to do every year now.
Great.
So we start the discussion about the close and then where we're heading into the next year.
Great.
Earlier. And so, well, you know, Sam, that's been a discussion we've had. So we're gonna implement that and keep that going forward. So we keep the dialogue open throughout the
Great.
year. But I do have one quick question. I know the numbers aren't due till October. How are we tracking with enrollment?
Enrollment for the current year?
Yeah, enrollment for the current year.
Okay, so enrollment is up overall by 10, 11 students at this point. It doesn't close for a couple more weeks, and believe it or not, it does still fluctuate until the very end. And Chelmsford is trending up overall. I think it was 14 students last time I looked, but again, that's not a solid number until October 1.
Okay.
So increase overall district enrollment and a larger increase overall in Chelmsford enrollment.
Okay. Something we'll keep an eye on.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions?
I do not.
All right. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
How you doing? You behaving? All right.
Thanks, Sam.
All right, next on the agenda, we have the Chelmsford Public School District report on discussion of FY19 closed and the current conditions. With us tonight, we have our Superintendent Jay Lang and Joanna Johnson-Collins from the Director of Finance and Business, and they're also members of the school committee here as well.
Need-
Good evening.
I'm gonna take that mic over.
This is just a printout of our end of the year report, our final report that was distributed to the school committee in August. We had done a preliminary report to the school committee at their July meeting, and then this is the final report that went to them in August. And nothing has changed since this particular closing. I did, just this afternoon, I'd forgotten to email you an electronic copy of this, so I just sent it to you earlier this afternoon. If you wouldn't mind just forwarding it to the other members.
I will certainly do
Just so
that,
that they
yeah.
can have the electronic copy if they'd like. But really, fiscal 19 ended very smoothly for the school department. And please, if anyone has questions for Joanna or Donna, just, jump in as we go.
Let's vote on it.
But we had a good, very good closing to the school year. We actually got it early this year, second week in June, which was nice. Kind of got a little bit of a vacation before the 4th. But really, everything closed up very well. We really didn't have much activity change-wise between our July preliminary report and the final August report. What you have before you this evening is we did make 2 final transfers at our August meeting to basically close our books, which is typical. This is something that we've done each year for the last few years. But one of them is the $21,000 offset to the food service fund. So this is for basically uncollectible fees for students who participated in the program over the course of the year but hadn't paid their fees. Collections are ongoing to still try to recoup those fees from parents. Sometimes we're successful, sometimes we're not. But we are required at the end of the year to basically take that debt off of the food service revolving fund and to incorporate that into the local fund. The food service fund can't subsidize the district operation. So that's why that chargeback is there. And then the last one we do each year, obviously, we had a $59 million budget, and we basically zero it out at the end of the year. So that circuit breaker final transfer is the one that is basically that amount, so it zeroes out our budget. So we did fully expend our budget. We ended up the year with a little under $250,000 in open encumbrances. So those are invoices that we're still kind of tracking down as the school year closes and gets paid throughout the summer. I don't know if you happen to know off the top of your head what the outstanding is at this point.
I think we've paid about 210,000 of the 241.
Okay. So very little outstanding at this point to still track down. Behind the cover memo that just talks about those 2 transfers is just our year-to-date budget report that's generated from Munis. More just as backup for you. Obviously, don't expect you to go through line by line tonight, but if you ever had a question about it, you can certainly email us and we can provide you that information. But very similar to the different transactions you've seen in previous years. And then the last page of the report is just our revolving fund and grant summary. So we ended the year, obviously, in the black on all of our various funds. You can see the blue column is our end-of-year balance, and those haven't changed since the end of the year. So a couple of the big ones that typically we look for from time to time is circuit breaker. That on June 30th obviously had a healthy balance of 1.9, and that actually only includes the 4 circuit breaker payments over the course of last year. If you recall, we've talked about sometimes that 4th quarter payment actually comes after July 1st.
Yeah.
Same thing happened this year.
I did, okay.
So technically, I want to say it's about 900.
It was 815.
Oh, 815 technically came in after July 1st. So, technically you're looking at about a $2.8 million carryover in circuit breaker. So very healthy. We're happy with that as a reserve. The school lunch program is actually doing well as well, and we're going to start to be a little more aggressive with some of our purchasing from that particular account to buy some supplies for our kitchens, equipment, things along those lines.
Okay.
So
What are you thinking of?
Well, just as equipment becomes outdated
Okay.
within the kitchens themselves, the different equipment, your ovens and things like that, that the staff would use.
Okay.
Again, athletic account, not a significant balance at the end, but that's an account typically that, whatever you put in a year, you expect to expend. That's not an account that you're going to see a lot of build up in. The daycare revolving fund, the ComEd fund, stands healthy at 1.8 million. We did, I'm sure you saw on social media, we did a couple of projects at ComEd that will hit that account, but the playground came out really great. If you're in the Westlands neighborhood, anyone in Chelmsford, obviously, but particularly the Westlands neighborhood, is enjoying that playground at Westlands. It really came out
Great.
great. The neighborhood's been using it after hours and over the course of the summer. And the kids in the program during the day, and even the after-school programs love it. And we added the air conditioning to the building in the upper level this past summer. We were able to have our Summer Fest at that site. So that was really nice to be able to have the whole ComEd summer program operate within that building. And I think families really seem to enjoy it as well.
That's great.
And that project, with the assistance of DPW, came in, on time and on budget. So, and that
Excellent.
will be charged to the ComEd fund. So that was
Even better.
positive. What's that?
Even better.
Yeah, no, it's a good use of the funding, and they've obviously built up a little
Of course.
surplus over the
Yeah.
years, so they're happy to do that. And then school choice, again, is standing firm, a little over $1.5 million, and that is the fund that there are no expenditures hitting it right now, but in this year, fiscal '20, where we have started to, and we will continue to charge off some of our leases and expenses for the 101 computer initiative that we've launched this year. So all of our incoming fifth and incoming ninth grade students and staff, obviously, were provided with we ended up implementing a Chromebook initiative. So this is going to be a 4-year rollout. So every year, all incoming fifth and ninth will get the device. They'll keep it for 4 years. At the end of 8th grade year, they'll turn it in. They'll get a new one to start high school. But really, in 4 years' time, we'll be able to have everyone in grades 5 to 12 having their own device. It's a take-home device, which is nice, so the kids can use it at school during the day, take it home if they need it. And just even the last couple of weeks being in the buildings, a lot of the teachers performed some professional development over the summer. They got used to the devices themselves.
Good.
We added some additional instructional technology within the classrooms, and it's really cool to see the kids and the staff using the devices when you go through the buildings.
So the grades that haven't been rolled out yet, they'll be, I'm trying to remember our discussion back in budget season, it'll be the carts that are still there, and then as it
Yeah, we have a
goes forward.
significant number already of just the mobile carts
Yeah,
that the
okay.
teachers used to sign out in the buildings, and they would compete for them because everyone wanted the technology. But now, actually, this year, where the 5th grade have their own devices, that opens up more opportunity for the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades, say at the middle schools, to have use of the carts. And really, by next year, when we have 2 grade levels in the buildings having their own devices, even though we won't deploy the machines that are in the carts, we'll almost have a one-on-one, technically, program in the buildings,
Okay.
where there really almost will be a dedicated card per classroom for the last couple of years. And
There's
then,
already now, I mean, my daughter's in 6th grade, and they have, they're not fighting over carts this year.
That's
They said
good.
that they
that's
love
good to
it.
hear, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not perfect that every single room has their own,
Yeah.
but obviously, by next year, it certainly won't
It
be an
should-
issue.
right.
But this year, even if they're sharing more on Teams.
Right.
So there's a card between 2 classrooms, but it's actually gone very well.
Great.
I think the parents are very excited about it. Most came in at the end of the summer to pick up their devices and whatnot. Again, we're going to continue with PD, with the staff, and really just make this hopefully a seamless program going forward. So
Great.
we're happy about that, and that's also going to be a nice funding source, for that school choice money.
Mhm. Excellent.
So all in all, fiscal 19 ended up very well. Joanna in the business office worked closely, obviously, every year with Darlene and John up on the town side to close the books. That has gone well. We're in the middle of, I say we, Joanna, is in the middle of completing the end of the year report for the Department of Ed. That goes in for October 1st. So again, nothing has changed number-wise. It's just a matter of reporting this.
Yep.
And then that gets processed. The October 1 student enrollment numbers, obviously, we always watch for as well. We have been having, as other districts do, just a lot of flux still, students coming and going from the district, so it's very hard to kind of pre-look at any of those numbers. But after October 1st, when we submit our data to the DOE, even though it's not certified, we'll be able to use that raw data to do some projections ourselves, so we'll be able to look at that. And then it'll be interesting just to see, the October 1 numbers are obviously what is the Chapter 70 formula is predicated on. But overall, I think we're in really good shape. Fiscal 19 closed well.
Do we know where we're tracking for enrollment?
We're pretty consistent,
Pretty
similar to
consistent.
last year.
Okay.
No huge blips.
Got
I
it.
will look at that middle school, the transition, middle school to high school.
Yeah.
I did hear Neshoba talk about having a few extra Chelmsford kids.
Just curious.
So we'll take a look at that. Again, 14 kids and looking at 5,000 wouldn't have
of
jumped off the
course,
screen
yeah.
at me.
Yeah.
But we do want to find out where the students are going. and I'll certainly look at that. Usually it's the second meeting in November or the first meeting in December is when we do the enrollment report for the school committee. As soon as that is done, I'll be happy to send it along to you.
That'd be great.
And you can see that as well. So 19 really ended well. Report will be done, will be audited. We'll obviously send that audit report along to you. Fiscal 20 has started up really well as well. So we had a nice long summer. Staff just came back after Labor Day. We actually just had our first payroll last Friday. So we're still in the process of encumbering your salaries and things along those lines. But we'll produce our first quarterly report for the school committee at the second meeting in September, and we'll forward that along to you as well. But at first look, Joanna and I, neither of us have any concerns over the fiscal 20 budget. We just want to figure out, tie in all our encumbrances and whatnot and see where we may have some surpluses or deficits and take a look at that. But again, at first look, I don't have concerns over local budget. I don't have any concerns over the grants. We actually got a little more Title I funding this year in that grant. So that can be used to help provide some additional supports in the elementary and the middle schools. One of the thing to keep in mind, one of the reasons that we're receiving some extra funding is our poverty count is actually going up, or the poverty factor, and then also the number of ELL students we have in the district is going up. And while it's not a number that jumps to be like, say, a Lowell type number, but we've still, I think 4 years ago when I started, we had about 125 ELL students, and we just went over 200. I don't know the exact number, but slightly over 200. That's a good jump in for a town our size in just 4 years' time.
And that's in district, it's not school choice or anything like that?
No, they're our Chelmsford residents.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was checking, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, Chelmsford kids. And again, it just kind of tells a little bit about some of the
Yeah.
demographic change in town, and we certainly see that in the schools. But we're excited about some of the new programming we've launched for this year, some of the new staff positions. Again, we went through the budget. Everything that we had talked about last spring was ultimately approved by town meeting. We appreciate your support in that, and obviously the town meeting supporting that. We're excited about the new SRO that started this year at McCarthy. We had one, Officer Sullivan, that was splitting both middle schools last year. We now have a dedicated officer at either school. So Officer the two Dans. Dan Gogan is at McCarthy, and Dan Sullivan is now full-time at Parker. And obviously, Officer Becky Tyros remained at the high school. But that's been great, continuing our rollout of our safety initiatives in the schools. So we're going into year 2 of that. But really looking forward to a great year. Kind of seamless opening. It's been a month, so I feel comfortable saying that now. And we're excited for a good fiscal 20.
All right. Any other questions?
Nope.
I just wanted to add that I'm the liaison to the Finance Committee from the school committee.
Okay,
So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, and I'll pass them on to Joanna.
that's fantastic. I'll start including you in all the emails. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having us. And if anything ever comes up, like I said, please reach out, and we'll send you some reports as we go throughout the year.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda tonight, we have review and discussion of the zoning warrant articles for the fall town meeting, and those are 23 through 29. And with us tonight, we have members of the planning board. If they'd like to come up, that'd be greatly appreciated.
The presenter of 22 and 23 has not arrived yet, so you want to skip to 24?
We can certainly do that, yep.
Okay, so these will be brief. You want to? Okay, so good evening. Evan Belansky, Director of Community Development. With me tonight is Nan Arroway and Glenn Cole, Chair of the Planning Board. So I'll do very high-level PowerPoint presentations, and then obviously there's other Planning Board members here to assist in answering any specific questions. So Article 24 is to amend the Community Enhancement and Investment Overlay District. That is a town-wide redevelopment. I'm sorry, and Mike Raisbeck has also joined us at the table.
I was going to see how long it would take.
I didn't see you move up.
Blending in, you're on both sides of the
It's
table.
like he's
here.
part of the finance committee.
Yes.
Next landing spot, huh, Mike?
Yeah, sure.
So as I was saying, the COID is a town-wide redevelopment overlay. For purposes of this amendment, what we're talking about is the multifamily component. So currently, the COID allows multifamily in all commercial zoning districts. It currently prohibits multifamily in IA limited industrial zoning districts. The amendment proposes to delete this prohibition, which will permit multifamily within IA zoning districts via a special permit from the planning board. That mirrors how commercial zoning districts are treated. The zoning map indicates where industrial districts are located. Those are in gray on the map. The highlighted areas are Brick Hill Road, Technology Drive, Princeton, Middlesex Street, Wooten Avenue, and Groton Road. As I mentioned, the Route 129 area already permits multifamily within that particular overlay. So that's the summary at a very high level. Be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Have there been concerns about the cooling off of commercial businesses being introduced into those areas by allowing this change for the multifamily? I know there's been a lot of discussion around that, and that'd be one of my concerns, is if we're adding the multifamily into these districts as well, are we going to have an issue where what we're seeing right now is a lot of multifamily housing going in, and we're not seeing as much of the commercial being done? And that's driven by the market, I understand that. But my concern is by making this change, is there any, I know that's not something usually that the planning board would consider, but it's something that we as a finance committee would, the financial impact that's going to have. So has there been any discussion about that, or any concern over that?
I don't think the planning board discussed that specifically. I think they were focused on kind of the good planning aspects of encouraging mixed use. I did bring to their attention, as I anticipated, that this question would likely arise between now and town meeting. So I think the planning board was aware that this question may be asked. But as indicated, the board, within their deliberations of the public hearing, I'm not aware, discussed this in detail.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
I'd say it came up in a general sense. It's an interesting question, a very interesting one. Do you want the market to drive what we do, or do we want to try to drive what the market does? And it's not a simple question at all.
Is this proposed change reactive or proactive? Did someone come up with this request, or the discussion about anything?
This is not developer-driven.
No.
Very similar to when the COID was adopted in 2013. That was not developer-driven either. This, I think, is somewhat forward-looking, trying to allow flexibility within the industrial zoning districts. On the other hand, as the chair indicated, if the town's preference is to retain commercial industrial properties, encouraging further multifamily development where it's currently not permitted, the market will likely take Chelmsford up on that offer. I think, as we all know, Chelmsford is viewed as a very good investment for multifamily based upon a variety of factors. And on one hand, that investment is new investment and new growth. and will revitalize those neighborhoods. On the other hand, the bottom line is transitioning commercial industrial properties to residential certainly has other impacts beyond planning and zoning.
Once the barn door is open, it's tough to close it. Can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. And throw a couple more idioms out there. Yeah, so I understand, and I know this topic had at least been broached when the CO went into effect down in the 129 area at Chelmsford Crossings, what's now called Crossroads. So I'm just trying to picture I'm seeing the neighborhoods in the map here, and it's a little small. I know some of those neighborhoods already have a multifamily use in there, and I'm guessing those are by zoning appeal exceptions, or, okay.
They're either zoning appeal exceptions, or they were 40B
Oh, they were 40B
developments.
developments, okay.
But almost all of our IA districts either have multifamily embedded in them today, or have them directly adjacent to them today. So this is not really a change of use. It eases the process of new development activity that focuses on that housing element.
Okay. Interesting. Do we know what the current vacancy, are there high vacancy rates in those industrial and commercial buildings currently?
Throughout the town?
Well, I know, in general, I know that's been the target, and that was a target of the change in.
There's soft spots in all commercial industrial zoning districts.
Okay.
Setting aside Groton Road, because that's being handled under Article 22 and 23. The one along Princeton and Middlesex are the mills. So while there's not owner or developer driven, that's certainly an industry model. And you could certainly see over a period of time where mills would be interested in adding residential or converting to residential. The others are similar to 129, where they're existing built out. It's very unlikely that an existing significant commercial industrial property would go vacant and get to a point where it'd be converted to residential. We're not seeing that down on 129 either. But there's certainly, we're all aware of some of the kind of the soft spots in kind of vacant properties.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm Technology Drive, I'm a little confused. What would this do to Technology Drive?
So there is one vacant parcel at the end of Technology Drive, last parcel on the left, right before the Lowell city line.
Right.
This would allow multifamily by special permit. Whether there's a market, whether the market views that particular parcel as a good location for multifamily, we haven't heard anything. It's been on the market for a couple of years, and we've heard the typical ideas presented, contractor, into a contractor yard, warehouse distribution.
And that property abuts the property that was just purchased from UMass Lowell, correct?
That technology?
Not on Technology.
No.
Well, it's on Technology, but the property that's just purchased from UMass Lowell is on Princeton. And I believe the footprint of that property comes up to that property, that last property.
I see what you're saying. They don't directly abut.
They don't directly abut?
They
Okay.
don't directly abut, correct. Yeah, Windermere and Meadowwood are back there.
Okay, all right.
How far is that separation?
Not big.
Wouldn't that, take that piece of property right there, if somebody did put in multifamily, wouldn't that really create more problems in terms of traffic and safety issues, where Drum Hill is so crowded already?
Not necessarily. I mean, picture a 50,000 square foot warehouse distribution center with 24-hour truck traffic. Some would argue that'd be worse
Yeah.
impacts. So it depends on your perspective. Generally, multifamily has a different peak traffic period, different than the other uses that it's surrounded by. So it seems to complement rather than conflict with existing traffic patterns. So it's really, the planning board's doing its job on presenting what they believe is good planning principles. And I think what you guys are referring to is there may be other perspectives. I think at the end of the day, even if town meeting adopts this, there's very few opportunities or low-hanging fruit in which there's vacant land, such as Technology Drive. There are some, and those small number of parcels the market may view them as good multifamily investments, but it's similar to 129. Just because you zone it doesn't necessarily mean that the market fully embraces it. You need to have an opportunity, and there's not a lot of vacant parcels in any of these zoning districts.
Okay. So the planning board is viewing this more of a cleanup and consolidation of what's happening in other parts of the town. Okay.
I think putting a new use on the table in case someone is interested to allow that conversation to occur. You got to remember, the COID allows a conversation to occur. It also allows the planning board to say, thanks, but no thanks, it's not the right fit.
Okay. Any other questions? All right.
Okay.
On to 25, or is 22 and 23 here?
Is Mike, you want to jump in, or you want to finish these? Let's finish these.
We can go through the end, and then you can come up and top it, sure.
Okay. Article 25 refers to pre-existing non-conforming structures only pertaining to one family and two families. Again, these need to be pre-existing non-conforming structures. Currently, the zoning bylaw requires compliance with current 2019 zoning standards. So what that means is upwards of 80% of the existing residential one and two family lots are classified as pre-existing non-conforming. Many of those houses on those lots are subject to special permits from the zoning board when they want to do an addition and expansion. We see this all over town. Every neighborhood is going through significant investment. When appearing before the zoning board, there are associated costs and schedules associated with obtaining a special permit. At the end of the day, 99% of the projects do receive zoning board approval, and that 1% is usually associated with significant abutter opposition related to a legal matter. So this does reduce burdens to existing Chelmsford residents. What is being proposed is that the bylaw would base zoning standards on the year the structure was built. What this would do, it would result in projects being more compatible with existing neighborhoods. This has nothing to do with new construction on a vacant lot, simply existing structures. In addition, the bylaw would delete the existing sliding scale that is based upon the increase to the structure. The zoning board is supportive of this proposal. They have been
This will significantly decrease their
would decrease their workload. As I said, many of these projects that have been captured over the last 5 or 6 years are ones that initially the zoning board, planning board, and town meeting thought warranted to be captured and reviewed by the zoning board. 5 and 6 years later, with lessons learned and experience, the zoning board and the community simply does not view most of these projects that are currently being required to go to the zoning board as warranted to go to the zoning board.
Okay. So this is an updating of the bylaw in order to bring it to current conditions.
Community standards,
Yeah,
correct.
okay. All right. Any questions?
I just have clear, so it defaults to basically the year when the structure was built, which could be 20, 30, 40, 50 years worth of rules to somebody to keep track of and figure out who's
Yep.
doing that.
So if you look in the, can you go back to the article? Right here. So within the article, we've done the historical research, and as you can see, this table dates back to the adoption of zoning in 1938 up until present time. And over that time period, the zoning bylaw has changed approximately 4 or 5 times as it pertains to 1 and 2 single family. So that's the information. To answer your question, what will happen is staff within my department and the building department will have this information as well as the maps. So as you can see, within July 56 to May 61, there were several different zoning districts. We have those maps. We'll provide that information, we'll publicize that information.
So I see your date goes back to 1938. What about homes built before that? Do we not have data on that?
So
Is that too far back?
I believe we're going to include structures prior to 38.
In the 38 to
Correct,
to
correct.
54
Yeah,
timeframe? Okay.
Yeah.
That may need a slight tailoring.
Yeah, it does.
Will have to be done on the floor.
There's a good number of homes in
Yeah.
town that were built before 1938.
Okay. Well, so it'll certainly bring some efficiencies in. Is there any, was there any concern in the open hearing regarding whether or not this is going to allow development that would be the opposed development prior to this change?
What, was there
I know that
any-
they said about 20% of our neighborhood issues that are coming through that are going to the zoning board. Is there concern this would open up and allow that by right now?
I don't think so, just based upon the last 5 or 6 years of zoning board
Okay.
appeals proceedings. Very few of those projects have any abutters show up. As I
Mhm.
said, maybe one out of 100. There's a butter opposition. And as I mentioned, just because there's a butter opposition, the zoning board is relying on legal
Of course, legal
framework.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
They have to go by precedent, but, okay, all right. So it doesn't completely do away with the setbacks and everything like that, it just simply reverts to the.
Correct, and I think what this speaks to, and
Yeah.
the planning board did deliberate on this, there's many houses in town that, your Campanelli ranches, they're blowing off the roof, putting a second floor on. Those projects currently require zoning board approval. There's many houses, small ranches, where they're putting additions on. Some would call them large additions. The fact of the matter is that seems to be acceptable to the community. This is what the community wants to do with their housing stock. That's one of the strengths of Chelmsford. I think that's being acknowledged by the planning board and the zoning board.
Well, not only that, the zoning board is finding no legal precedent to deny it.
Exactly, exactly.
I think that's quite frankly the more important part of it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. I think what might be beneficial, and just the explanation of it on the town floor, will be a discussion about what the percentages are going through and what this will mean as far as alleviation for the zoning board and their work there. To make it very clear that this is something that's following trend rather than a change that could be seen or could be argued that it's just too.
It's not developer-driven, it's not even
Yeah,
flipper-driven or
well,
contractor-driven.
exactly, yeah.
Right, I mean, like, the zoning board, 80% of their applications are Chelmsford residents.
Yep.
Longtime residents want to put a garage on, want to put a
Okay.
second floor on, want in-laws to live with them. It's
Okay.
really for the community.
I've seen it in my neighborhood, yeah. Well, there'll be a public comment at the end.
I need to ask it now, is there any way to open a window?
Yes, we can, certainly.
The ones that I used in the halls, I'm having trouble reading. I want to hear, I want to listen to what you're saying, but I'm having trouble reading.
Get the air on, that'll probably be better than over the road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to Article 26?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, so Article 26 is the planned minor administrative modifications to the planned open space development zoning bylaw. This is otherwise known as the cluster subdivision. The amendments are, there's 4 amendments, as I mentioned. They're very minor in nature. One is to allow a cluster subdivision by right rather than requiring a special permit from the planning board, reduce the eligible acreage from 10 down to 5, associated with reducing the perimeter setback from 100 to 75 feet. Then the final one is to allow the required open space, which is 25% of the development, currently requires it all to be contiguous and on-site. This amendment would allow portions to be non-contiguous and off-site with a special permit from the planning board. Next bullet is really important for people to keep in mind. This does not increase density, nor does it make undevelopable land developable. This is really about updating the existing cluster subdivision bylaw in an effort to continue to promote the creation of protected open space and agricultural lands in Chelmsford. For some context, there are 15, we've done some GIS and parcel analysis townwide. There's approximately 15 parcels in town that are vacant and have 5 acres or more. And there's 23 parcels in town that have 6 or plus acres. Those are lots that have an existing house on them of 1 acre and have an additional 5 acres.
Okay.
So we've mapped those out. We can present that at town meeting so people have an idea as to where these open space cluster subdivisions may be located moving forward. But it's important to remember that those parcels are already zoned for development.
How far non-contiguous are we talking here?
So it would definitely have to be in town, and
That's good to hear.
yep. You just never know, because there are parcels that are split zoned. Would have to be in town, and existing open space is defined, it requires quality, so it can't all be wetland. And it encourages properties that can be accessible to the public. So the benefit of allowing off-site is that while there are very few property owners in town that would own multiple properties around town, there are enough where this concept would be beneficial to the town to allow that flexibility.
Allow
So
the
in some
transferred open
cases,
space, yeah. Okay.
exactly, it's along those lines. Again, it requires a special permit, so the planning board has legal discretion and authority to make sure that the town's getting a good deal.
Okay. All right. Any questions? All right.
All right, so that concludes my presentations. I believe we're going to go back to 22, 23, which is Route 40, and Mike Walsh is going to do that presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, 22 is just the rezoning.
Do we have it?
Yeah, copies right here.
Oh, I get the hard copies, right? I can give them these
Okay.
colored copies.
Yeah, but you can just pass them out.
Okay, I didn't know if we had it up there. I have it on a thumb drive, too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know.
The table you're
He's a member of our committee, doesn't he?
He's made himself very comfortable.
I'm Mike Walsh, and I am a member of the Route 40 Subcommittee. I am also a member of the Planning Board,
Yes.
and I'm a Precinct 3 rep. But tonight, I'm speaking to you as behalf of Pam Armstrong, who is the chairman of the Route 40 Subcommittee,
Okay.
the study committee, so and she asked me if I could just be here to answer some of your questions.
Sure.
On that, so I'm answering on that aspect tonight, and Glenn can answer on behalf of the planning board itself. So we put together a presentation that was done back in June for the Route 40 study. So the committee was formed a year ago. We met for 9 months, multiple meetings. You can see in the report here the committee members. It was developed to have one selectman, a person from the Board of Selectmen, I should say, 2 planning board members, and then 4 residents. When this committee was finished, 2 of the residents have become public office, including
Yep.
myself.
I noticed that.
In Virginia.
Who's also our liaison.
Yes. So we had a total of 16 meetings over 9 months, which we had open hearings every time, at every meeting. We went through all of the items with an open concept. One of the first items we had was to open up, have a mission statement. And the mission statement, if I don't mind reading it, is, if you don't mind me reading it, is review the current zoning, consider the impact of the area, the neighborhoods, the local businesses, and the town of Chelmsford. Recommend the best use of the land for development, considering changes in the future. We were here for this, just a little side note, just a little fact. We were all propelled into this a year ago because of one developer, one interested party who was buying property up and decided to work with the town to try to get it rezoned. So I am, for full disclosure, a direct abutter to the south side.
Okay.
4 of the residences on the members are from the local area, and we all applied online when it came out, and we were all approached by the planning board to join that committee, to help show our visions on that aspect of it. But we did go into this with an open mind. We came in with 7 options, and we did have invited guests. There was 12 invited guests that we had that came to certain meetings. There was homework that was done between different members. We have a full book that has been published, report with all the meeting minutes that have been taken every place, probably the best meeting minutes I've heard that any committee has done in the town of Chelmsford. So they're there for bedtime reading if you wish to do that.
I don't know, Pam. I'm not gonna sign on to that one.
So I think tonight, would you like us to talk about what the final recommendation was, or would you like to talk to all of them? All the zoning options that we went through.
We can go to the final recommendation. But if we have any questions regarding the others, we can certainly circle back.
So the final, we can get that up there. So the final recommendation here was to, the recommendation of the board was to leave the south side RC. Currently, right now, on Route 40, there is a zoning conflict. RC on the south side abuts RB. It is single-family residences right now. Back in 2011, it was rezoned to RC for 2-family, so a family could put an in-law apartment in. They never did, they moved. All the homes there are still single-family homes, but it is classified as RC on the south side, and then also the first 200 feet of the north side. Directly on the north side, we have a zoning conflict, and that's, Evan would agree with that. There's IA, there's trucks, there's single-family residences that are there. The final recommendation that came, when you look across the whole, was to say, go RB, leave the RC where it is on the south side, and then on the north side, change the zoning to IA, pulling it all the way to the street, with utilizing the overlay aspect of this, which we'll get into. The IA would allow the residents to still live there on the south side of, I'm gonna get confused, on the south side of the north side, or on the front end of the north side, the RC section.
The street side of the north side.
The street side, you see that little line across the frontage,
Yellow and the blue.
is single-family homes.
And that is the only frontage. I don't think there's any.
And behind them is IA, where it is mixed use. There's a lot of trucks and a couple of little businesses that are in there.
Corey's right there.
The north side of this property, Route 40, is 51 acres of land. In comparison, the south side is 16 acres of land. And then the north side also incorporates the state-owned property. So the maps that you have in front of us are a little different than the article that's going through, because that triangle that's pieced right there along Route 3.
Mm-hmm.
You don't mind me standing up?
Nope.
Along this piece here is the state-owned property. That's their property, correct me if I'm wrong, Evan, along Route 3 for future truck pull-offs or anything that they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So we've incorporated that under the request of Evan's group to be in the IA. So on the map that you will see at town hall meeting, that is including in the hash, that section. So that is in case if the state ever sells that property, it would be continuously in the IA. Right now, it's not zoned.
Okay,
There's no zone for that piece of property.
got it.
Got Pam's notes here. So on the recommendation, use of tables, one thing I'd like to call your attention to, I know you don't all have a copy of this because it's part of this report here. If you pass that along and look at that, this is what they can do right now by right in the RC and what they can do by right in the IA. And the size of buildings, the types of buildings, they can put a hotel in there, they can put a medical office, building. They
Is that
can.
in here, or is that separate?
That's
No,
a
we're
separate
not
one,
passing
that's
them
part of our report.
That's IA versus RC.
So we did this for analysis, and when we were looking at that during the study, it kind of opened our eyes that the IA right now can do pretty much most, if not most of what the proposed developer that is buying the property wanted to do, except residential. And
Do you know what the proposed developer wanted to do?
the proposed developer wanted to put six, first of all, they wanted to put six very large, five-story structures on the south side, right up against the single-family homes. And then they wanted to do some work on the north side as well. They're buying the property on the south side, they have a few properties on the north side. But that is, so when we came through the recommendation, looking at this property, and then I think it tied into with the other article regarding the multifamily, and then the overlay that we've put in place here, the entire committee felt the need for the town was the senior housing, and felt the senior housing is down the street at the senior center complex. This would be a nice area for senior centers if we thought that, so we thought about putting an age in place. We called it an age in place, which we can call it the continuing care community. And then in this article that we were proposing, to put in amenities to support that, that concept.
I mean, not to be a downer, but are we concerned at all about the asphalt plant going online soon?
We are, but the town wasn't concerned about the asphalt plant for a while, until this all came about. And the neighborhood, in fact, I bought my property up there, I did not know the asphalt plant was going in. A lot of the neighbors who are trying to sell on Route 40 did not know that that was going in. And so we did not analyze that, we did not take that, we took into account, but we didn't look into it, it's a done deal. We talked about, the committee did ask the town if they would do an air test for the neighbors up there, and that was turned down.
Well, there's nothing to test right now.
Well, we could do a baseline right now, and then do a baseline of the air test right now, and then do a baseline in a couple of years from now, once the unit's up and running. So that is part of a whole different discussion.
Okay.
That came up.
Yeah,
That's not part of this article.
I'm not gonna open Pandora's box right now.
No, we don't even want to.
Heart palpitations.
So,
So I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So I pulled up the Google map of the area, just to sort of see what's there, because I can't get like, in
Yes.
your map.
Yeah, that's
So
fine.
there are some, it looks like some commercial stuff that would be
that are currently in the RC zone, is that correct?
There's industrial buildings that are in the IA zone.
IA.
Yeah, it's, so, yeah, so,
Yeah, but currently they're in the RC zone, correct?
no.
No.
It's all
It's only
single-family
the first
homes.
200 feet.
Okay,
So if you're looking at that map,
yeah.
Amina,
No, I see that, right, this
Yeah.
is the current, correct?
page,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the current is that yellow that runs like just like one property about
Yeah.
Yep.
on the north side.
Mhm.
All right, so,
to the left of Route 3.
okay, and then when you're gonna move the IA down, that's what you're recommending?
To the road,
To, all the way to the road?
Yes,
all the way to Groton Road, yeah.
to eventually clean up that zoning conflict.
Right. What happens to the single-family homes that are there, though? Because of an IA,
Well, they're existing non-conforming, but well,
It'd stay residential.
it's stayed residential
For the longest time.
until they sell.
And an industrial person wanted to put something industrial there.
what if they sell it and somebody buys it and wants to put an addition on, or tear it down and rebuild the house itself? They can.
Still do that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't all of a sudden, once it changes hands, have to be industrial?
No, you can't force a property owner to change
Right,
the
I'm
zoning
just-
after they're already there, yeah,
I'm
no.
just curious,
yeah.
because
They grandfathered in as to what they are,
the property.
property.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, the way it was sounding was that it was just the owner.
No, this is,
No,
this
the
is,
use is grandfathered.
yeah, this is not an eminent domain situation.
No.
There's no taking involved.
Thank you.
So the recommendation on article, what's the article, first article we're talking about now?
22.
22 is to make the recommendation for IA to the street.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the next article is the continuing care overlay.
Okay. Can you just describe why this particular option was the one that you ended up choosing?
We looked at that because I'm trying to think, remember the discussions that were taking place. The biggest push was, in the group, was the senior housing. And we did have the gentleman from the senior housing come speak with us, David.
David Hedison.
And they were talking about, there's a big list of the town, and, there's 300 people on the list. In fact, my mother-in-law is on the list, and she's been on it for a year, 2 years, and still 5 years from now, they said, she'll be a couple of years out still. So I know personally that there's a need in town, and then you hear from everybody, and we felt that was, if a developer wanted to come and build an age-in-place facility, a community, where they could come. We allowed in the overlay a little bit of commercial, so that you could put a 3,000 square foot restaurant in the area. You could either have it continuous to the age-in-place facility, which would be a multi-residential facility, or you could have a separate unit. But we did not want just little tiny places like a Friendly's, the old Friendly's kind of set up like that. So we put a minimum on that you could not be a single occupancy of a facility.
So we're kind of going into the next article when we're
Oh,
talking
I'm
about,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. I understand that
They're
they
all
relate to each other,
intertwined.
yeah.
Both of them.
And just on the previous, on 22, does anybody have any further questions, or? We're not debating about this right now, but
How many property owners are in the current RC that will become IA? Or roughly, I mean.
In the current location?
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now. There are 12. There are actually 9 homes, excuse me.
That's
on
the
north
south side, try the north.
Talking the north side or?
North side, yeah.
North side, there's 14.
14.
Wait a minute.
Is this Doris Drive,
Doris Ave
Duane?
won't count,
What is that?
and what, because that's.
Oh, yeah, that's
back.
right, that's back.
Yeah,
So up front, there's 11.
11,
Actually, 10.
okay.
Sorry, 10.
And the
10 right along the,
we're on the north side of Groton Road.
yep, there's 10.
south side, the north side. And, like, feedback, input from all or any of those, just in general, to this?
So there's both sides. Marie, tonight, you'll hear, and a couple of John and a couple of other people, they want to live here, and they've been here for a long time, and we've heard them, and we understand them, and we're trying to do something for both, trying to do something. They want to stay here. They do not want to see big buildings going up around them. We understand that thought process, and we've taken that into account, that when someone does try to build something, there is some setbacks. You can't just build right up against residential. So,
Okay, why don't we go on to 2023 and talk about
okay.
the CCCOD, because we're kind of going into that discussion.
I just want to answer this one last question
Yeah.
on the, that's, there, so.
So that's part of
it.
yeah, your answer is kind of going into that next.
Well, it's not going into the CCC, because
No.
this is IA piece.
Okay, I apologize.
There's a group of people out there that want to sell to the developer and leave. And we've asked them, where would you be after this? Because it's the best thing for the town. And they spoke at our meetings, and they've spoken at the planning board. They're leaving. They're selling and leaving, they're not staying. And that's the other opposition that's there. And then there's all the abutters who are on the other side of things and don't want to see these complexes because we're staying, that they want to stay in the town, and they want to work with the neighbors. So that's to answer your question.
Thanks.
There's a little bit of both. And I think at town meeting, I think a little bit of both, that will come out. And I think tonight, and when they have public session, that will come out as well, both sides. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, I apologize for, I thought you were going into the discussion. Why don't we go into the discussion about the CCCOD?
Yeah.
And just kind of clarify what that would do once the change in the IA was made, if it's made.
So the change, yeah, if the change is made on the CC, you can jump in here as well, because you helped write that piece of it. It allows various aspects that allows the community that we talked about to support senior housing. And it allows in here, do we have the exact?
The wording? No, I don't have that here.
I have it.
Yeah, right there.
Paul, could we pull up the warrant article itself for 23? Thank you.
Still sore, huh? Still sore.
So the CCCOD is yet another option for developers that we're recommending to be applied to that area. The north side, the section that's already IA,
67.
is already subject to the CEIOD and all of the options, redevelopment options that are available via the CEIOD. If the article on removing the prohibition of multifamily goes through, then this area also would be affected by the ability to have multifamily in it under the CEIOD.
So, okay, that's interesting. If
Yeah.
the change to the multifamily and industrial zoning does not go through, and this does, this would only allow for,
If the CCCOD goes through, it also has an element for multifamily housing in it.
okay, so either
Okay.
way, this would be unaffected by that vote.
If either, that's right, if either of these is enacted, then it would permit that as one of the options.
Okay,
Okay, so under the CEIOD, there's limited options for commercial development in an industrial area. This does add new options, but they do have limitations. They are either very much in support of a senior housing community, or they could very well be in support of an industrial utilization that, such as we see on Route 129. They're that limited use commercial. What we made an effort to prohibit in this area is large-scale commercial development, gas stations, automobile sales, things like that, strip malls, things that would create a lot of daytime traffic, large quantities of daytime traffic to the area.
So there's a restriction on the size of restaurants.
That's right.
Yeah, the restriction was 3,000 square feet
Yeah.
and no drive-throughs.
I
But it
better
has,
not see an article coming before in the
but
next
could
year.
eventually, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But it also added in there, personal care facilities such as, a barber, salon, laundry, dry cleaner, financial services, pharmaceutical supplies, pharmacy and banks, retail stores and services. So there is a portion of this that has that small commercial piece.
I think it's important to note, I guess, is that this is creating an option, but doesn't mean that option is going to occur.
That's right.
Right. It's given an opportunity.
Has there been, does this stem from interest on an actual senior facility, or is this just wishful thinking?
I would have to say this is wishful thinking because we have not received, we as the planning board or the Route 40 committee has not received any specific requests from the development community for this area.
But the planning board, Mr. Chair, the planning board should not, does not rezone based off of one developer.
No, and I understand and appreciate that.
And we're just trying to give a vision for the area,
Mhm.
and that's what the committee was set forth to do.
Mhm.
And the committee has given this recommendation to the planning board, in which they've endorsed it 6-1.
And if a developer comes in that wants to propose something to town meeting, they can do that on a citizen's petition. If they want to alter the zoning themselves.
Yeah, so if nothing was done with this, if this did not go through, then this would still be something that someone could bring forward. But by creating this, it's allowing this, but other things.
That's right. That it's one more option to entice developers to do something with that area. And it's an option that as a town we need.
And then one other thing we added was, that's a little different, was after 200 feet back in the IA, on the north side, they could go to 5 stories. And in the back.
So after that current line where the RC ends,
Yep.
at that line, they'd be allowed
Because
to
in
go
IA,
to.
right now, by right, they can go 4 stories.
Yeah,
In the overlay, we would keep it at 2 stories, way it is now, so the whole Route 40 stays the same height, distance at 35 feet, and then 200 feet back, which is where basically the Rivards and the Loisels are now, could go up to 5 stories, which the developer wanted to do at other areas. And then it gives all of that lot back there, where there's no neighbors, you got Route 3, and then you have the quarries and on the back side, that's where the 5-story structures would go, if they wanted to put in the multifamily pieces of it.
But subject to current setbacks to the abutters, it would allow a jump from 2 to 5 at that line.
That's right.
Yes.
But that's compared to 2 to 4 today, because they can do 4 stories there.
4 stories.
They can do 4 as an industrial today,
As an industrial, yeah.
as an
But
industrial.
not as a multifamily.
Yeah.
So they could go an industrial building, but then it'd be it'd be a different use. Okay, any other questions? And I think there's no action on the other, was it 20?
Okay, we still have 27. This is my baby.
Okay, so let's,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm here
Thanks,
if you have
Mark.
any questions.
Did my slides get put in? All right. Thank you. All right, so Article 27 is the second attempt to take a historic preservation article, zoning article to town meeting. In the past year, I've been working with, yeah, all right.
So there have been changes to this
There
since
have
last
been
year.
changes to
So
this.
there's an article that was on last year that has changes to it this year and being presented with changes.
That's correct.
Okay, just check. Thank you.
There you go.
One more?
One
Do you
more.
have one more?
You have one more? Who needs one more?
Thank you.
There you go. So, the reason for a historic preservation bylaw is very simply to promote the investment in some of our older residential properties such that we don't lose the character, the old character of our town. And, you know, it's a funny dance. The why created? Well, the master plan, the last master plan, identified the need to promote preservation through zoning, and it identified that the historic nature of our town is something that people really do want to see preserved, that it's part of what makes Chelmsford Chelmsford, and we want to keep it. We do have a demolition bylaw, demolition delay bylaw, but it can only go so far. We cannot prohibit the destruction of these properties. We can only slow them down. Changes in the building and the environmental codes has made it very expensive to renovate these properties. So it takes a lot of investment and a lot of personal time to take care of them. And with our changing demographics, there's just less interest from homeowners in making those investments. The land in Chelmsford has gone up so much that in many cases, the land exceeds the value, the land value exceeds the value of the property itself, of the houses. So this address, considering all of those things, this addresses methods to promote that preservation with bonuses, because we can't prohibit it. And those bonuses provide economic incentives to owners and developers to restore and maintain the properties. The bonuses that are provided specifically are the addition of a living unit, a dwelling unit in the properties to raise them to 3 families, and a bonus to split a property into 2 smaller lots. In both cases, these come with something back from the owner, and that is a preservation restriction or restrictive covenant, basically a contract with the town with a term not less than 30 years. The preservation restrictions are held by the state, and they can be held in perpetuity. The restrictive covenants are held by the town, and they're limited to 30 years. So this gives us, you know, some leeway, but it isn't forever.
It's a longer delay.
It's a much longer delay. That's exactly right. We currently have 108 properties that would qualify under this program. The requirements for it is that they're documented as historically significant. And there's only there's a couple hundred properties that qualify for that. They have to have at least 50% of the required lot size for their zone. They have to have enough, they have to be large enough to support minimum dwelling unit sizes. And this bylaw sets consistent sizes with other parts of the zoning bylaw. The parking has to be provided out of the front yard, so it has to be side or backyards. So that adds another requirement to it to qualify. And the development plan has to include the restoration of the exterior of the property. So this gets the properties both brought up to the visual standards and expectations of what they are expected to look like, and it gets the insides of the properties and the utilities fully renovated, because to go to a three-family, by building codes, it has to be. So it really does require an investment on the part of the owner-developer, but they get a payback. And the payback is that they get the rental from the extra unit.
Are there exceptions at all, or will there be exceptions given to the requirements? For instance, if they only are 49% of the required lot size, is there a way to request an exception, or is it just specifically with these rules?
There is always ways to request exceptions.
Just checking.
And honestly, that's right. That's why you have the CBA. So these are designed to be reviewed by the planning board as a special permit. In order to go that exception route, you have to go to the ZBA, and it's anybody's guess. This does not eliminate the option of property owners to go to the ZBA to request a 5-family. You can't. But this makes an easier path to go to a 3-family, but it requires a very large commitment to do that. The second bonus is to split the lots into split an adequately sized lot into 50%, 2 lots that are at least 50% of the required sizes. The third thing it does is a little bit of housekeeping. We already have a section in the zoning bylaws that allows properties built before 1938, when the bylaws were put in place, to be converted to 2 families. This moves that section into the historic bylaw, historic preservation section. It does not place any other requirements on them, except that it standardizes the living unit, the dwelling unit sizes with the rest of the zoning bylaws. That slightly increases some types of units and slightly decreases others, but it harmonizes it. The next 2 sheets show the properties that are affected by this bylaw. The only properties that, yes, I'm sorry, but.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
I see it now.
I can put these on 11 by, we can put these on 11 by 17s for handout at,
That might help people, but
I
you're
think
gonna get
so.
complaints about the size.
I know
Yeah.
yeah, but for, sorry,
You
but for
can't please
now.
everyone, I know.
You can't. What you'll see is that the properties that qualify for the 3-family, that have enough land acreage, large enough houses, and are already on the historic registers, tend to be in the old town centers. Everything that's colored on here qualifies for 2-family conversion. So the ones that qualify for 3-family also already qualify for 2-family. The ones that are green, there's a lot of them, 625, qualify for 2-family conversion. And there's 279 properties that have already been converted. Many of these are converted to 2 families, but there's also 3 families, 4 families, and 8 families in there. The next 2 slides, the next one has some examples of properties that have been lost, that had room for negotiation to save if we had had this article. The Dutton House could have been moved. McKennedy may have been able to be negotiated with extra revenue from it. Spalding House. The next slide is existing conversions. This is from that list of properties that have already been converted. There's just a couple examples that, people might recognize. The particular ones on here are 4 families and 3 family conversions. And the last page is statistics. Because I know we're going to get this question. And I have to say, no, it is not uncommon in Chelmsford to have properties on lots that are 50% or less. In our RA district, almost 74% of our lots are less than 50% of the required size. In RB, it's 33%, a third of them. Not undersized, but less than 50% of required size. And in
That should be RC.
that should be RC.
Okay.
And in RC, it's 35%. The number that are compliant are kind of similar, and everything else is in between.
I have a math question I'm not getting.
Yeah?
So you can split a lot, that's one of the bonuses, you can split a lot to create 2 lots, but each split piece has to be at least 50% of the requirement.
That's right.
So if I have an RA and only 90% are compliant, sorry, only 10% are compliant, those are the only 10% of those that could apply for that.
That's right.
Okay.
9.8.
That's right.
Precise.
I was right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, only the ones that are compliant could apply to have that split, because otherwise you don't have enough property to get 2 pieces that are 50% compliant.
And then depending on where your actual house is, that could.
And it has to be on the
A lot more.
and it has to be on the register, and, yeah. And you have to be willing to put it under preservation.
Okay, thanks.
So,
Now, Nancy, a change from the article from last year, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the previous one allowed for conversion of accessory dwellings as well?
that's correct. The previous version allowed for an additional 3 units in accessory dwellings on a fully compliant lot. So a lot that was twice the size of what we're looking at here. But it did allow for 6 families, and there was just a lot of feedback that said, look, that's too many cars.
Acceptable, yeah.
Yeah, it's just
So that's
unacceptable.
been excised from
That's gone away.
this. Okay. So it's listening to the town meeting and making that change. That's, okay. Any other questions?
Questions?
Is this, this is the pitch for town meeting?
This, I believe, will be the pitch for town meeting.
To Jim's point, because I remembered this vaguely, but it's probably worth specifying what you changed, just so.
Okay.
I would certainly put you would definitely put a slide in there saying, this is what it looked like last year, this is what we have taken out, this is what we've adjusted.
Okay.
Almost like a red line to show people, yes, we heard your concerns, we've addressed your concerns, but we still want to make sure that we're supporting something that we feel is going to be beneficial.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well done. That was well timed. All right. Next, we're going to have a brief discussion of the future meetings and timelines of the Finance Committee warrant book production. It's a continuation of discussion last week. We had a request from the Recycling Committee to come in next week. So I honored that request. They're going to come in and discuss their Article 32, at the beginning of the meeting next week.
Okay.
And then after that, we'll have our usual public comment, followed by our deliberations and votes, followed by, again, public comment, as we usually do. I've had a request from the EDC
Yeah.
to speak about the Groton Road articles. I don't know if we want to have them present or have them as part of the public comment. And
How
I'll,
long do we think?
I don't,
What
I
do you
don't-
think the time is
Donald,
gonna be?
how long do you think you would be,
2 minutes at most.
okay, I'm gonna hold you to that,
That's fair.
okay,
Yeah, I think we should have them present.
okay, I'm okay with that, we'll do that before public comment, of course.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so, our target is next week. Next week we'll be making
Yeah.
our recommendations. I think we've heard most of what we need to hear, and we'll hear what the rest of it, next week. So that we'll be able to turn around, Pam, and get that out in a timely fashion, hopefully. Okay. Public comment. Yep, anyone who has public comment can come forward. Please state your name and where you live, and feel free to provide public comment.
My name's Virginia Crocker Timmons. I live at 28 Lovett Lane. I am a member of the Route 40 Study Committee. I was subsequently became a Precinct 3 rep and a member of the Board of Selectmen, and I'm speaking as a member of the Route 40 Study Committee.
Okay, thank you.
Just, I wanted to clarify your question about building homes near the asphalt plant, because that was something that the committee did discuss. And actually, at one point, I went back and pulled this out of my notes, but Pam, who's a real estate agent, went and did a very cursory look at data. So we have an asphalt plant on Route 110.
Yep.
And at the time she did the look, there were over 500 condos within a half mile of that asphalt plant, and over 30 units had sold within the last 6 months of when she looked, between 200 and 380K, and the average day on the market was 37. So just a data point for you
Yep.
regarding homes near asphalt plants. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Marie Burnham.
Please come up to the mic, and then you can give your name
I don't
and.
know why, you can't hear the mic in the back.
No, it's.
It's for
the
people at home and on the
audience.
recording.
Okay. I'm at 255 Groton Road,
I'm sorry, your name was?
Marie Burnham,
All right, thank you.
at 255 Groton Road, North Chelmsford, Mass.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if you could have them refrain from using such stringent chemicals in the building before a meeting. I've had trouble breathing, and my eyes are watering because the smell when you walk in the door has been so strong. The air has helped, my inhaler has helped, but I've had to go outside. If we're going to attend these meetings, those of us who have trouble breathing with these chemicals shouldn't be excluded.
We could certainly speak to the town. We have no
I mean,
control
your
over
meetings,
that.
your meetings are scheduled, right?
Mm-hmm.
They could easily take a look at the meetings and say, okay, there's going to be a meeting, and there's going to be a lot of people. Let's do this the next day when there's not going to be a meeting. I realize cleaning is necessary, sanitation is necessary, and fighting, infestation is necessary. But killing the residents because of it at a meeting isn't necessary.
Well, I'm sorry you've been affected. I can say personally, I haven't noticed it. However, I understand that you're affected by it. I
could
personally,
smoke a pack-
again,
a
have no
pack-
control over the cleaning schedule. I
I
can
can
certainly
smoke
bring
a
it up.
pack of cigarettes, and it doesn't affect me anywhere near walking down the detergent aisle at the supermarket does. And when you have this,
We can, again, we can certainly address that with the town.
We don't have control.
We have
over
no
it.
control over that. We can certainly address that and bring that up as a concern.
right, but you can contact the people who have control over it, the cleaning people.
And as I said, we will mention that.
And they can refer to meetings when there's going to be people here. They shouldn't do this. I mean, as soon as I walked in the front doors, I could sense it. And I've been having trouble ever since. I went outside for a little bit just to get some air. As I said, a pack of cigarettes won't do to me what the air in here is doing to me.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike Walsh again. I live at 7 Burton Lane, Precinct 3 rep, Planning Board, and also Route 40 Subcommittee. One thing I just wanted to clarify, I mentioned earlier about the the air testing on the, for the asphalt plant, we never formally asked for that, so we didn't have a formal, I did say it was denied, but I don't think we actually had a discussion with, we had informal
That's an important
discussion.
clarification. Thank
We
you for
had-
that.
We had informal discussions, but we never formally went to Mr. Cohen's office. You're asking for the EDC to present to you next week?
They have asked
They
to
have
present
asked,
to us.
yes. I just want to make a clarification, just a comment to you, a fact. Their chairman, who is our partner at the planning board, Don Van Dyne, was on the committee. He was always, and to his credit, he was pushing commercial since day one, and he'll explain that next week. We gave them opportunity to speak. In fact, I think there was one meeting that there was a couple of members of the EDC were there. They did not speak to the subcommittee for 9 months. And then when the recommendation came in, they now have a voice. So please keep that in mind, and especially their chairman was on the committee. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Certainly. And again, just your name and your address. Thank you.
My name is Jerry Hall. I live at 34 Love Lane in beautiful North Chelmsford. I am in the abutter to the south side.
Okay.
When this committee was formed, they were talking about the future. And I want you in your deliberations to think about the future in terms of 10 or 15 years, not the quick 3 to 5 years that if we went in and did a quick commercial development with supermarkets and movie chains and hotels and gas stations. I think the long-term perspective that they had with the aging population, needing the medical services, needing the places to live, I think that's the right approach. You know, we talk about gas stations, you know, GM and Ford and Volkswagen are spending billions of dollars right now to convert their fleets within 12 years. So you're not going to see a need for gas stations. I don't see a big need for a bank with a drive-through. I think anybody under 30 with a smartphone hasn't been in a brick and mortar bank. They can take a picture of their check and deposit, whatever. I'd like you to think real long-term. You know, even a supermarket. My nieces make fun of me because I still shop up at Hanford. Why aren't you doing Peapod or doing whatever at, you know, Walmart or Whole Foods and getting stuff delivered to you? What's your time worth? So I think looking at, yeah, could we do a quick commercial development and get a whole bunch of bucks right away? Think about the long-term viability of all those brick and mortar stores and those things. And I think the Route 40 committee did a good job at that, thinking about the town's needs, not just now, but 7, 8 years out. And I really wish we could get some people on the committee who are under 30, because I don't think us old geezers are really looking forward that far. And I can say that because I'm going to be 70 in another month, so. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further public comment? Certainly. Okay?
You okay?
My name is Kim Bennett. I'm on 25 Lovett Lane. I'm not a direct abutter, but the front of my house faces the abutters on the south side. I don't think I've met any of you before, which is the reason why I just want to have a couple of minutes of your time to now. The town officials and the planning board and the board of selectmen are very well aware of my opinions on development on Route 40, going back to about a year and 2 months ago when we first started hearing about this developer buying up property and so forth. So I've had plenty of time to think about this. What would would any development directly impact the value of my home, the view out my front and side windows and so forth? If nothing changes on the south side, I have nothing to complain about in terms of the value of my home or my view. But when I think about the opportunities that could come about with the proposals that are now being made for the north side, I'm asking you to take a drive, if you've not before, going from Vinyl Square down Groton Way Road, and you'll go through Westford, and you'll start heading further west. And it's a really nice drive. Bring yourself a nice warm coffee, keep the music down low. Don't try to look around too much, because I don't want you to go off the road. But there already are a couple of gas stations on that road, but only a couple, maybe 3, by the time you get to the other end of Westford. When you do get right over the North Chelmsford line into Westford, you'll immediately see a kindergarten-type place, KinderCare on the right. There's a medical building on the right. There's a Lowell 5 on the left, very tastefully done. It almost looks like a building. There's a couple of convenience stores as you go through Westford. There aren't tall buildings at all that you can see from the road. 5-story buildings being 200 feet back from Groton Road, I just think it's going to take away from the feel and the environment and what North Chelmsford has looked like for all of its life. And I certainly do appreciate the need for senior housing. I am in no position to deny that, and I know we have an aging population, and founding affordable senior housing is very, very tricky. That's true for most towns. But there are other options in town. I know that there's the possibility of what was the UMass West campus. And even if we did think that Route 40 North was a great location for senior housing, does it have to be 5 stories high? And in addition, the proposal that's on the table now would allow regular, everyday multifamily to go in if, in fact, a senior development never came to fruition. And that really bothers me. I'm not clear, I've not heard from the town, why we need more and more multifamily. That giant unit that's being built behind Brick House in the center is crazy to me. Where are all those people going to come and go from that building? They're going to flow right back into all the traffic that already is around the town center. There was a proposal not long ago accepted by the planning board of a 1/2 acre of land on Turnpike Road to be converted into 6 single-family homes on 1/2 of an acre. That looks like nothing else on Turnpike Road. What is the need? Why would we push for that? There was another proposal to the planning board about 2 months ago from a developer from out of town. I think he was from Worcester or something like that. And he had a vision for a building that would also be multifamily, abutting the center of town. And one of the reasons he thought that would be a swell idea is because it would bring more residents who would be on foot to travel by foot across the new walkways and pedestrian walkways to get over to the library and to the Summer Street businesses. If the Summer Street businesses need more business, there's got to be a couple of marketing plans we can put together without having another multifamily building in the center of town. So my main point is, I don't think Route 40 North needs to be for multifamily or for 5-foot-tall building. Smaller senior housing, sure. Any other general multifamily in Chelmsford, I think it changes the character of town, and I don't see the need. The town hasn't yet showed me that there's a need. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further public comment?
Hi, this is Marie Burnham again of 255 Groton Road. I want to address the character of the town. You need to be careful with the zoning about changing it. Chelmsford has always been very good. My daughter Sarah, she graduated Chelmsford High, was accepted at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and they were impressed that she went to Chelmsford, because Chelmsford put the money behind their kids in the school system. Okay? She's now an astronautical engineer. Right now she's at Lockheed. She does contracting, plus she runs her own housing. She has 5 houses in Connecticut. That's one of my children. Another one of my children, she's a civil engineer like her father was. Okay? Another child of mine just got her degree in socioeconomic, working with kids. So I'm not even quite sure of it myself. She's very smart. She was in the advanced programs. My children thrived here. That's why parents take their kids here. You don't need to imitate Lowell when you change your zoning rules. If we wanted to live in Lowell, we could have spent half the money to live in Lowell without having Lowell move into with us. We chose that because of the reputation of the town. You've got to consider the reputation of the town and the quality you want the town to be. Do you want it to maintain and exceed the quality it has now? Or do you want to just make it an extension of Lowell? You need to think about that with all the zoning changes and all the other things you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further public comment? Seeing none. Any press questions? No press this evening. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll put forward a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All's in favor?
Aye.
See you next week.
I survived it.
Planning board up here next week, I'll probably come anyway, just because I like it.